Hello, 7th graders. I hope your night has been going well. Tonight's lesson is on 1-4, and it looks at integers and absolute value. In tonight's lesson, we have two main objectives. First, you should be able to graph and order integers. And then second, we're going to be looking at absolute value, and with that comes opposites and so on. So those are our two main goals for tonight. Now, the first thing we're going to look at when we talk about integers is temperatures in our great state of Minnesota. Because mainly, a lot of the times, we deal with negative numbers and we don't even really realize it. And this can be adapted to math because of our background or our prior knowledge of it. So if we look at summer temperatures, which has just gotten over, a lot of the times we see temperatures 70 degrees, 80 degrees, 88 degrees, all the way up to even 100 or so every once in a while. So if I were to graph this on my little thermometer over here, it's generally around here in the summer. Now the winter, however, is the direct opposite. It gets cold, extremely, extremely cold. And you know what? Sometimes we're lucky and it's 10 degrees or even 0. But however, sometimes we get -10 degrees, -20. And I believe one time last winter it was like -40 degrees. Very, very cold. So if I were to graph that, well, those are all down here. So if you take a look, in the summer, we're way on the top of the thermometer, while in the winter, we're at the bottom. Now, this could be considered a number line because if you flip it, it's pretty much like one. We have our 0 right in here, but then we have our positive or our bigger numbers, and you notice that it goes 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and so on. So the numbers are increasing as we go that way, getting to our hotter temperatures. While on the other side, we have our -10, -20, -30, -40, our cold temperatures. So if I were to ask someone, oh, what is the coldest temperature that I have listed? Or they would say -40. Well, some people, if I were to ask, well, what's the hottest? They'd bring up that 100. So what ends up happening is the colder it is, the least amount of value it has. So if I were to say, well, -12 or 14 degrees, what one's colder? Or what would you rather have? Well, most people would say 14 is warmer. So -12 is less than 14 degrees. So basically, the colder it is outside, or the colder temperature, the least amount of value it has. All right, and this comes with our little activity here. Again, I have a number line, and 3 things you're supposed to do. A says, circle the positive numbers on the number line in green. Now, I have green, but you might not, and that's okay. Just use your pen or your pencil, whatever you're using. So circle the positive numbers. Well, those positives would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, I know some of you might have wanted to circle 0, but 0 is not actually positive. So those are our positives on our number line. And again, the arrow continues on, so that means if I had 6, 7, 8, and so on, any positive number going to the right is considered to be positive. B, circle the negative numbers in red. Well, again, those are on the left-hand side, that -1, -2, -3, and so on. And it continues. It's going to just get more negative. And as you see, I did not circle 0 there because it's not negative either. C now says put a triangle around the number that is neither positive or negative. Well, there's only one number left, and that would be 0. 0 is not considered positive or negative. It's just itself. It's really in a league of its own. So 0 is in a triangle. Now, for a little bit of a practice, we're going to look at what integers are. And integers are those positive and negative whole numbers. And 0 is included as an integer. So it has to be a whole number, but it can be positive or it can be negative. And it can include 0. So what you need to do now here is put the integers in the target below. So basically, any number that's considered an integer, write it in the target. So I'll help you out with this first one. I see the number 3. Well, 3 is a positive whole number. So I'm going to write 3 in there. All right. However, though, I see negative 1/2. Well, 1/2 is not a whole number. All right. So that one is not put in there because it's not a whole number. So why don't you pause the video in just a moment here and, well, put those integers in. And from there, we'll see what ones you get right. Go ahead and pause it now. All right. Hopefully you had a chance to do this. Now we're going to just write the other integers in. I see 2. I see 0. All of those are whole numbers. Let's see. Negative 1 and 2/10 does not count because it's a decimal. 3 and 14/100 is not a whole number. 75/100 is not a whole number. But then I keep looking over here. Oh, negative 100 is. It's a negative integer, as is negative 23. 1/4, however, is not a whole number. It's a fraction, so it doesn't count. Oh, we have negative 7. That is a negative integer. Then we have 3. Again, I guess I put that in twice. And that is considered a positive integer. So hopefully you had a chance to look at those and get them right. All right, and now we're moving on to this piece. All right, so we can identify integers now. Now we want to graph them and order them. And example 1 here says graph 2, negative 2, and negative 3 on a number line. Order the numbers from least to greatest. Well, on this one you can use a number line, and sometimes they have them drawn like I do on this one, and sometimes you will have to draw them by yourself. But again, you write the negative numbers on the left, your 0, and then your positive numbers. And what you're going to do is first graph them. So I'm going to find each number and then put a dot where it is. So 2, well, I'm going to put a red dot there. Negative 2 is right there. And then negative 3. There we go. All right, so I just graphed them. Now I need to order them from least to greatest. So the smallest number to the one with the most value. And again, the more negative or the farther away it is from 0 on the negative side, that's the least greatest. So we take a look. Negative 3 occurs first. So that's actually the smallest number. Then we have negative 2. Then we have 2. So once you graph them, just do them in order. Whatever you see first from left to right, that's the least to the greatest. There we go. Now, however, we're going to look at absolute value. So we're on that second part of our lesson today, our second objective. And the first thing we should look at are opposites, because they talk about opposites of a number. If I were to say the opposite of go, many of you would know that means stop, and so on. There's opposites in math as well. And opposites are numbers that are the same distance from 0 on a number line, but they're in opposite directions. So I have a number line here so we can see it visually as well. The opposite of negative 3. Well, first, I'm going to graph negative 3 so we can see it. There is where it is. Now, I need to figure out how far away it is from 0 because I need to find a number that's the same distance from 0. So I look at where 0 is, and there it is, and I'm going to count my hops. 1, 2, 3. Negative 3 is 3 hops from 0. Okay, so I need to find another number in the opposite direction, so on the other side of 0, that's 3 hops away. And if you take a look, well, if I start at 0, 1, 2, 3, the opposite of negative 3 is 3. All right, I'm going to erase it, and we're going to do the same now for 2, the opposite of 2. So we plotted 2 on the number line, and now it's your job. Find out how many hops it is from 0, and then find a number on the other side of 0 that's the same. Go ahead and do that now. If you would pause me, please. All right, so if you counted, you've probably noticed that 2 is 2 hops from 0. And on the other side, negative 2 is also 2 hops from 0. So the opposite of 2 is negative 2. And this is, if you observe it here, the opposite of negative 3 is 3. Negative 3 is 3. The opposite of 2 is negative 2. All we did was switch the sign in front of the number. And that's how it works with opposites. You just change the sign. If it's negative, it becomes a positive. If it was positive, it becomes a negative. Now we get to absolute value. And this one talks about the number's distance from 0 on a number line. So basically this time around, we just count how far away is a number from 0. All right, and it's good to see that it's written like this. It has these 2 bars around it with the distance being in between them. So whatever the distance is, you write in here with those signs. So use a number line to find the absolute value of negative 5 and then absolute value of 5. Well, if we start here, again, I'm going to graph it. Here's negative 5. And if you look at the definition for absolute value, a number's distance from 0. I have to find out how far away it is from 0. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, took me 5 hops to get there. So the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. All right. The absolute value of 5, same idea. Find it on your number line, which is right here, and then see how far away it is from 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 hops. The absolute value of 5 is 5. And as you might have noticed, it doesn't matter what direction we went in. I went to the right on the red one, and then I went to the left on the blue one. I just want to know how many hops it is. So it doesn't matter what direction. Your answer wouldn't be negative, except in special cases, which I think you'll see soon. All right, and then example 3. Simplify this expression. So we're towards the end of our lesson, and we need to simplify. We have 9 minus the absolute value of 11 minus 7. All right, so what ends up happening are really the order of operations here. You need to simplify within the absolute value first before we can solve. So if you take a look, well, those absolute value, if you were at 11 and then you take 7 away, you end up at 4. 11 minus 7 is 4. And again, we treated it as if it was just parentheses. We did the subtraction in the middle first. 11 minus 7 is 4. So now we have 9 minus the absolute value of 4. Well, you can't subtract those yet. We need to know what the absolute value of 4 is. So again, you need to think, what is, how many hops is it from 4 to 0? And again, you could draw this out if you wanted to. There's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I find 4, which is here, and then count the hops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, it's 4 hops. So the absolute value of 4 is 4. Then I subtract. 9 minus 4 is 5. My answer here is 5. All right, we have a little bit more to go with, and this is actually the end of the lesson, but I think it might be a nice idea to just check our learning. And number 1, well, it says a debt of $50. We need to write an integer to represent each situation. Now, if we're talking about being in debt, that doesn't mean you have the money. You're actually at a loss. You lost that. If we're talking about a loss, it's a negative in front. So this should be negative 50. All right, go ahead and do 2, 3, and 4. And then when you come back, see if you have the answers right. Go ahead and pause me now. All right, so we have a dive of 23 feet below the surface. If the key word here is below, because we're talking about below, this is also negative. So negative 23 feet. And again, you should have labels here, because they tell us what this is about, feet and dollars. Then we have number 3 here, the absolute value of negative 12. So we had to find out how many hops is it from negative 12 to 0. And if you looked at that, you find out that it was 12. All right. And then we have 4, which is one of the end ones where you have to do some work. We have the opposite of the absolute value of 8 minus 4, minus 2. Well, again, you start within the grouping, which here is the absolute value symbols. 8 minus 4 is 4. So then we can't really do absolute value of 4 minus 2. We need to find out what the absolute value of 4 is. And again, 4 is 4 hops from 0, so that is 4. Now, however, if you take a look, there was a negative sign on the outside of it. So that actually gets carried down because it wasn't within the absolute value symbols. So we have negative 4 minus 2, which is negative 6. If you have negative 4 and then you take 2 more away, that would be your answer. All right. That is your lesson for today. I look forward to seeing you in class tomorrow. Have a good night.